morning, everybody. We are here at the Missouri Botanical Garden this morning. I'm Christina. This is Cassidy. And tomorrow is the Climatron's 60th birthday. So today we are going to take you on a little bit of a behind-the-scenes historical tour through the Climatron. And tomorrow the Climatron will be open to the public. So if you like what you see, stop on by and celebrate that 60th birthday. So,
yeah,
go ahead.
You can kind of see it here over our shoulders. We'll turn around so you can get a look at it. The Climatron was built in 1960, the first geodesic dome that was used as a greenhouse. The geodesic dome was designed by R. Buckminster Fuller, and the St. Louis firm of Murphy and Mackey are the ones that constructed this. It's been named one of the 100 most influential pieces of architecture in the United States, and it's definitely iconic for us here at the Botanical Garden. It houses a big chunk of our tropical plants that are on public display when the building is open. So most people, if you've been here before, you recognize the Climatron. What people may not know is what this area looked like before the Climatron was built. So prior to 1960, we had the old greenhouse, the palm house here in the center, and you can see the same lily pools that are out here now were in place. These were built in 1917. And the palm house basically got to a point where it was too expensive to maintain, and they felt like they needed something new, something bold and different to bring in visitors, and then that's where you got the Climatron that you see here. And it's particularly striking as well because the original entrance to the garden was directly across from the Climatron. So when people used to come through the front doors, they would walk straight here to the Climatron to see the tropical plants. So we'll have a few things like that on this tour today, some history, talking a little bit about the early days of the Climatron and showing you what's in bloom inside, because it does look beautiful year-round because it's tropical year-round.
All right, and here in the entryway we have another historical photo to show you guys. This is the original climate control system.
Yes. Oh.
We're trying out new mics today, so bear with us.
Yes. So this was the original climate control system, and this is what gave the Climatron its name. Climatron is basically a mashup of climate and machine. It wasn't the only name they considered, actually. There were some other names in play there when the Climatron was being built, including Flora Dome, Plantosphere, and Silvarium. I'm personally glad they went with the Climatron, but it's kind of fun to see how many different variations they were considering on basically this idea of plants under glass, or this big container for plants. So yeah, this used to be how they controlled the climate in here, and the Climatron was originally designed to have 4 different climactic zones, so the weather would be slightly different in 4 different areas of the Climatron. That never actually worked very well, and today there are 2 distinct climates in here. One on this upper level that we're on now, and then it actually gets cooler as we move towards the back of the Climatron and go lower. And this, sadly, is not here anymore, but it used to sit right at the front entrance. It was kind of a focal point, so that when you walked in the Climatron, you were seeing it in action right off the bat. So we're here by the waterfall, and the reason that we stopped here is to take a look at the palm trees and things up above us here. So those are some of our taller plants. It's 70 feet high, the Climatron is, so lots of room for these tall tropical palm trees to grow. And just to, again, to give you some historical perspective, this is a photo of the Climatron under construction. And you can see the palm trees here as the framework is going in. And unfortunately, all of these palm trees died. They were actually trying to build the Climatron fast enough to be able to save these holdovers from the original palm house. But there was a really early cold snap, unfortunately, in 1959, and it killed the 11 big palms. So all the big trees you see here all died, and then everything, all the palms that you see today would have been planted after the Climatron was finished and the dome was enclosed. So it was a really interesting process for the garden to try and speed through construction of this. And it's great that we still have palm trees in here today. So that's just a nod to the original conservatory, the original palm house. And this is one of my favorite views in the Climatron, because you have the waterfall and the palms, and you see that great architecture on the dome, that geodesic pattern. So this is definitely a great spot to just stop once you've kind of walked in and kind of soak in the experience of being in a tropical forest. And feel free as we're walking along, if you have any questions, go ahead and put those in the comments. We'll answer them if we can, either about the history or present day Climatron. We promise it won't be all history, so we have fun things to show off here, like this really pretty Chinese hibiscus. It's blooming right now.
And then over here we have an original panel from the Climatron before its more recent renovation.
Yeah, so the original Climatron was covered in plexiglass panels. Those were the windows. And you can probably see here why that ultimately didn't last in the long run. The panels got discolored and had this cracking, and so they really weren't letting the light through the way they were designed to. So in 1990, the Climatron underwent a big renovation, and that included taking out all of these original plexiglass panels, and they've been replaced with 2 panes of glass with stafflets in between. And so that's what we have on the Climatron today. Let's see if we can come to the edge here and maybe show you the difference. But
Yeah, you can see how much clearer the new material is compared to this old plexiglass.
and there are 2,400 plus panes of glass over the Climatron. And the windows do get cleaned occasionally. We bring in crews that go across the outside, and we clean them from the inside as well to make sure that they're functioning properly, letting in the light that they need to, And that's quite a sight to see when we window watch the Climatron, for sure. And one other thing we can do right here while we're here, Christina.
Yeah.
Is, the little hidden spot a lot of people don't know about. So the Climatron, when it was originally built, had this walkway that went all the way around. And it still does have that walkway today, but most of it is closed. It's staff-only access. However, here by this south door, there is a little bit of walkway that people can still take. And it's easy to miss, but you'd miss some of the cool plants and things that are along here. It's really pretty butterfly orchid here.
And I did just want to mention, because we've gotten a couple comments, that the Climatron is open every week from Thursday through Sunday. So the other days of the week, our staff is still working in here, and it's closed so that everyone can maintain social distance from each other. But tomorrow and all weekend long, you will be able to come visit. So the Climatron will be open.
And you can come check out this little catwalk over here, this little walkway. And so this, again, is something I think a lot of people miss. They may not realize that it's open, but you can walk actually right here. We're kind of up in the canopy of a jackfruit tree, so you can see one overripe jackfruit right there, and a couple, I count 3 smaller ones. So that's pretty neat to be able to get right up into the canopy of some of these trees. And one of the reasons that I like this little kind of hidden out of the way piece of the Climatron is because you're up in the canopy. So there's papaya. This is an air potato that I don't see any potatoes on. Yeah, so if you come and visit the Climatron for its birthday tomorrow or any point this weekend, check it out. You see there's a spot there. Your journey will come to an end, and again, part of the reason that's closed off is because there's mechanics and things, and so that's staff only, but you have this little stretch where you can come and walk along the outer edge of the Climatron.
And someone just asked about the geckos.
Yeah, we can talk about the geckos. I happened to notice. So this is a cacao tree, which is where we get our chocolate from. And you can see in here, these are tiny, tiny little cacao pods that are beginning to form. And the flowers as well, that'll turn into those. So cacao and jackfruit as well that we were talking about, those are polyflorous, meaning they grow right off the trunk, and so you can see the flowers and fruits right off the trunk, and it's something neat to see because again, when you eat a chocolate bar, you may not think about the plant that made that possible, but here it is. And again, by being on the walkway, we're able to get right into the upper canopy of this tree. So kind of neat to see. I was glad to see there were little pods on it.
Yeah.
And yeah, the geckos, we'll keep an eye out. So the Climatron has a number of geckos that live in here. They're not, they're kind of shy. But if we see one, we'll stop and try to point it out and talk a little bit more about the other animals that live today and used to be part of the Climatron. Alright, here's our next little historic tidbit. And by the way, I'd like to thank Emily, who's on our design team, who printed these out for us so that we could show them off for you today. So Emily, thank you for making that possible for us. So what we're looking at here is the inside of the original Climatron. And you'll notice this big structure, and that would sit right in the middle of the Climatron, and was actually sort of a delineation between the upper level and the lower level. So there were stairs off of either side for you to actually walk down to the bottom. No stairs in the Climatron today. It's ADA accessible for anybody that wants to visit. But this structure was actually the back of the original palm house. So as they tore that down, they left this intact, and this was originally how you left the palm house and went into the Italian garden, which was behind the palm house. And so they left this in place. There's a little fountain down here, and actually pieces of this, I've been told by staff that we're here for both iterations of the Climatron, but actually pieces of this are hidden in this rock. The rock was actually built over those remnants. So kind of a neat thing to think about. Again, just kind of for people that, like myself, that don't remember the original Climatron, it's just kind of a chance on the 60th birthday to get a look at what used to be. So that's what the original Climatron, part of the original Climatron, looks like there in the middle. And another thing I'll mention since we're here, speaking of the old Climatron, these plants are called cycads. So they look like palms, but they're not. And cycads actually date back to the time of the dinosaurs. And they have these really hard foliage. I mean, this kind of hurts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really spiky.
And a number of these cycads were actually in the palm house. So we know some of these plants to be at least 100 years old, if not older. Some cycads can live as long as 1,000 years. So this is this is a living example of the history of not just the Climatron, but even the garden before the Climatron. A living example of that history right here with these cycads. So you have these historic cycads, and then they also, I mean, even just as recently as a few months ago, added new cycads to the collection. So it's not just that we're preserving these plants for historical purposes, but we are actively adding to the collection, usually with an eye towards conserving a plant that might be in trouble. So that's just kind of a neat thing, and yeah, watch your shoulders when you walk through this area, because these leaves definitely stick out and will make you pay attention. And here's one of the things I was talking about, how they're bringing new cycads into the collection. So these here are actually two cycads from South and Southern Africa that were planted more recently, and they're both considered vulnerable in their native habitats. So having them here in the Climatron is a way to help safeguard the future of these plants. And there's any number of other plants, not just cycads, that are in the Climatron for that reason.
Which we have this bed here too, behind us. And a lot of the plants in this bed are from our work in Mauritius and Madagascar. And you can see that on these signs here. It'll tell you where it comes from. This particular plant is not in flower right now, but it's this one right here. And we recently had a blog post about this plant, which is called Nesicodon. So you can go find that on our blog, and there are lots of stories on there about our different conservation projects.
And now we're coming to one of my favorite parts on this tour because it's something I remember as a kid, and I hope some of you watching remember as well. The talking orchid. So this is a picture of the talking orchid with its little mouth here, and it used to hang up in the tree. And had little hoses that hung down that were meant to simulate its epiphytic roots. And there was a little pool of water here, and you could cup some water in your hands, and the orchid would actually drink it. And then it would talk to you about orchids, about what orchids were, pollination, habitat. And so I always thought that was a really cool thing as a kid because I could interact with something here. And we were talking about our blog. There's actually, we've written a little brief history of the talking orchid on the blog, and we have the original audio as well. So you can listen to what it used to sound like. But the problem with the talking orchid, as you may imagine, is that all these mechanical pieces in a tropical rainforest setting where it's, the moisture is about 85% in here at any given time and is watered constantly by staff, the mechanics just didn't hold up and the talking orchid had to be retired. But it lives on our blog, and while we don't have the mechanical orchid, we still have lots of really beautiful orchids, living orchids. These are part of our permanent collection. The Climatron is the only place publicly accessible in the garden to see blooming orchids year-round, and they're actually switched out as they bloom and fade, so the display changes all the time. And so here's a couple of really pretty orchids that are in bloom right now, right next to where the talking orchid used to be. And this is something that's definitely a crowd pleaser. Lots of people love this. There's two of these cubanolas in the Climatron. They're both in bloom right now, and they just have these really great flowers, sort of trumpet-shaped flowers that hang down from the tree, and they look really cool. I see lots of people being influential around these. So that's in bloom in two places here in the Climatron. So another reason to come out this weekend for the Climatron 60th birthday and see what's blooming.
Here, let's stop and point out the pelican flowers. These are just amazing. You can come see these in bloom as well.
And I wonder I think that's the reason it gets the name pelican flower. So before it opens, I don't know, to me that kind of looks like a pelican head, right?
Mm-hmm, I can see it.
Maybe that. I'm not sure if that's why it has the common name that it does, but that's the flower before it opens, and then this is it when it's fully open here.
And this tree here is another good spot where you can usually see some orchids.
And while we're here in a little bit of a quieter spot, I just wanted to mention really quickly, using this as an example. So this is an anthurium, which is in the Araceae family, which is also known as Aroids. So Aroids are very distinct in that they have this outer sheath called a spathe, and then this flower supporting structure called a spadix. And we have probably one of, if not the most preeminent studier of aroids in Dr. Tom Crowett, as well as other people on staff that study this plant family. And so not only are they, in this case, really pretty to look at, but we actually have researchers that actively study the plants as they grow in the Climatron. So Monica Carlson is another one of our aroid experts, and she leads student classes in here, takes DNA samples, takes scent samples, all of this to just better understand this plant family, the aroid family. So that's kind of a neat thing to take away from just this. I do think it's pretty in its own right, but as are so many of the plants here, but it's something that we are also actively engaged in the scientific study and understanding of this particular plant family. So lots of aroids to see here in the Climatron, kind of give you an idea of the variation in that plant family, which includes things like monstera and philodendron for people that have houseplants. Those are also in the aroid family. So this stop is another one of those features paths. For people that remember the original Climatron, one of its most prominent features was the aqua tunnel. And if you can, just to describe what you're seeing here, you're seeing people underneath an aquatic pool here in the Climatron, walking through a tunnel. If you've ever been to Sea Lion Sound at the zoo and they have this space you can walk underneath, it's a similar concept that was part of the original Climatron in 1960, and it was removed in the renovation in 1990. But what it allowed you to do was walk underneath the water and see the undersides of aquatic plants, in particular the Victoria water lilies, which we've shown off on previous tours in our outdoor pools, have these giant spines on them. They're covered in thorns. And so this was a chance to look up underneath and see, and this would have been one of the entrance points for the aqua tunnel. So up above was a little pool that you could see from above, and then you could go underneath. And that was something I didn't know about until I started working here, and it just fascinates me that was a feature that we had. Maybe we can petition to bring it back. I don't know. And if you share any of these memories, feel free to share some of your own memories in the comments from times that you visited the Climatron. I mean, in addition to being just this lush tropical space to enjoy, so many people have very specific memories of the Climatron. We hear all the time people that got engaged outside the Climatron or inside the Climatron, or remember coming here with their parents or their grandparents. And so I would encourage you, if you want, to just share those memories in the comments. And again, feel free to ask questions as well as we're walking through here. And just to talk a little bit more as well, I mean, we were talking about the Aroid, so here's another Aroid. Again, spadic. Once you get that basic part of their morphology down, it's really easy to spot them if they're showing their inflorescence. So up here on the cliff face here, the Swiss cheese plant, that's going to be some sort of monstera probably. That's also an Aroid. And some of these Aroids, while they're nice house plants and really small, you can sit them on your desk or in a windowsill. In the wild, some of these plants need basically the length of an entire tree trunk to grow up before they're ever mature enough to be able to flower. And so that's something that here we can kind of provide some of that, and we do the same in our research greenhouses for Aroids as well. But you can see here is another monstera that just goes, it's planted down here at the base of this cliff, and it goes all the way up. Oh yeah, one more while we're here.
Oh yeah.
This is also an anthurium. That's a little past its prime. You can see the space here is kind of faded already, but this particular anthurium has this great spiral shape to its spadix. And so that's just kind of a neat thing to see. And again, that's the same genus as the one that we showed with the nice tidy little purple inflorescence up around the corner. So they're like cousins, and this one just has a very unique form to it. So we had somebody ask earlier about the geckos. I have not seen any yet today. And so the Climatron does have living animals in it. It has the geckos, and we also have silver-beaked tanagers, and then we have some fish here in this large tank. Not too easy to see them right now.
Yeah, they're all hiding right now, it looks like.
Yeah. But the original Climatron had a lot more animals in it, and some pretty big ones as well. So I like this picture. Right here are some roseate spoonbills. And it's hard to get a sense of the scale, but these are sort of the size of like large ducks. And we had two of them that were brought in the late 60s, early 70s. They were actually loaned to us by the St. Louis Zoo. So they loaned us the spoonbills. They also loaned us an iguana, a toucan, and some other birds. There were butterflies in here at one point. And so that was a piece of the Climatron history was adding this animal life. The problem with doing that is that a lot of those animals like to eat plants, and so it just wasn't as easy as we would have liked it to be able to care for the animals properly and care for the plants. And being a botanical garden, the plants were our first concern. So today it's just those small animals, the geckos and the tanagers. And the geckos actually play an interesting role because they actually eat the insects that would be otherwise damaging the plants. So they actually act as a form of pest control. So they're very beneficial to keep inside here. And the Climatron staff actually has, and the greenhouse staff for that matter, in our production greenhouses, actually maintains a gecko breeding program so that we have a supply of lizard friends to
natural pest control.
Exactly. It's called integrated pest management, and that's one of the ways that we do it is through geckos. And I haven't seen any today, unfortunately. So we're going to backtrack a little bit, and then we're going to take you on a little bit of a behind-the-scenes
adventure.
Yeah, a little adventure. Just to show you a place in the Climatron that you don't normally get to see because it's not open to the public. It's a staff-only area. But we're going to take you up there and kind of give you a different view of the Climatron. So bear with us while we get ourselves into place. We're going to go off the path a little bit here. Up into the forest. So we're changing your view a little bit, taking you up to just about the highest point that you can be here in the Climatron. So right now we're actually just about on top of the big waterfall. And you can see this really sizable monstera here. And that's where it's planted. And you'll actually, as you're walking through, you can see this from the lower level, draping off the side of the cliff. And if we can walk over there, look at the size of this thing.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's one leaf. And it has these really, I mean, this is one of the things that Monstera is known for, is these holes. That's why its nickname is the Swiss cheese plant. So this really cool form, and this thing is massive. And one of the things I like about being staff and being able to come up here is it lets you see the Climatron from above. So we are really in the canopy here of some of the tropical trees. looking out on the palms and everything. And it's actually warmer up here than it is where we were just a few moments ago. So as you gain elevation in the Climatron, the temperature rises. So it's about 15 degrees cooler where we were down by the fish tank than it is being up here right now. And now I'm glad that I'm in shorts and a t-shirt, even though it was a bit cool outside.
Yeah, you can definitely feel the temperature difference as you're walking up and down.
And I think that's one of the things that people like about the Climatron, and I know I do myself. You know, we just celebrated the first day of fall not too long ago. Winter is coming, and the Climatron, no matter what time of year, provides you this great tropical escape. And I think especially now when it's harder for people to get out and travel to places that they might normally go, tropical destinations, you can still come get a little piece of that. You can't set up a beach chair and drink a Mai Tai, but you can come and at least enjoy the plants and feel like you're on a bit of a tropical vacation here in the Climatron. And it's been providing that respite for 60 years. So again, one of the reasons we did this tour today was to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the Climatron opening, which will be 60 years ago tomorrow. And while the Climatron is closed today, it will be open Thursday through Sunday through this weekend for you to come and soak in a little bit of the tropics.
So thank you all for watching today and joining in this sort of virtual celebration of the Climatron's birthday. And keep an eye out tonight if you're in the area. We will have the Climatron lit tonight, and I believe tomorrow night as well, in celebration of that birthday. So again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you all soon.